Hey all, I just wanted to go over some progress I made on a game jam that I joined. I joined the Metroidvania Month Game Jam for November to December. I ended up joining halfway in between the game jam, unfortunately. I did not have enough time to finish the game jam, but then I joined this longer duration called the Super Metroidvania. So the first thing I started to work on in Godot was player movement and mechanics. I really wanted the player to have good feel, and I noticed that the default character controller, while it does get the character moving around on the screen, the problem is it's not very realistic and it doesn't feel very good. So to combat that, I used curves in Godot. I discuss this a little bit further in the video. I also started working on a ledge grabbing system. This was the first iteration of it where you would jump, it would use raycast to find out where the ledge is, and it would slide along it. Eventually I stopped having it slide, and so then when you grab the ledge, you actually just got fused to the ledge. Here's me doing some more tests on ledge grab and dropping off of a ledge, and trying to figure out what kind of mechanics I could create with ledge grabbing. Ultimately I decided it'd be great if you could vault up and over walls, so I worked on that kind of mechanic. In addition to that, I really liked the idea of being able to jump off of a wall. I think I was inspired by Pseudo Regalia, which was a Metroidvania that was built last March. So I decided to have the player be able to slide down a wall while you're pressing and holding the jump button and then jump off of it. Here's some of the code where I show off how you can use curves in Godot to manage non-linear movement. As you can see, each curve is a little bit different, and it helped me tune the character's movement in the game. As an example, when you fall, just having gravity pull you down at a slightly increasing rate until you hit top speed before you fall down to the ground creates a realistic sense of weight to the character. In addition to that, I also wanted to have the character be able to use some of the momentum while it's running to increase its jump distance, and I used curves for that. I would create both the ground speed curve, which is the character movement in general, and then an influence curve as to describe when you're jumping, how much of the influence from the ground speed do you have during the jump. So if you're not moving very fast, your jump would be small. If you're moving faster, your jump is much further. Having them in curves let me continually tune them. I also worked on an enemy and some enemy AI. There's a sight bounding box that'll help the enemy find you, and then as well there's a raycast that comes off of the enemy that once it sees you in its bounding box, the raycast will continuously track you until you're too far from the raycast. And then after a set amount of time, it'll go back to what it was doing. In this case, I had 2 patrol points going where it could go back and forth between the patrol points. Here I have an example where you can run away from the enemy, and after a set amount of time, the enemy will give up and then go back to what it was doing originally. If, for instance, you go and hide behind a wall, the enemy will try and find the last point it saw you before you went behind the wall and could not be seen again. I also added some impulse, so when you're hitting the enemy, it gets pushed back. And I had a save system. Here I'm just editing the health to my character because I don't have health in the game that you can replenish your health with. And I just wanted to show off what happens when you actually kill a character. It just sinks into the ground, and after a few seconds I have the respawn point respawn the enemy, and it goes back to patrolling what it was originally patrolling. Here's some of the patrol points. You can create as many as you want in the tree. The spawner will take the enemy, and then if there's a patrol node, it'll also take the patrol node, and then on respawning, it will respawn the enemy and set the patrol points for that enemy. The colors for each patrol node actually gets randomly generated using the tool modifier in GD script, so you can see what it looks like inside of the Godot editor. So if you have multiple enemies on screen and you're trying to create patrol points for them, the patrol points will be differently colored for each enemy, so you can easily distinguish between them. Here I add a third patrol point just to have the enemy do something different. As it goes through the patrol points, you could either have it loop going from 1, 2, 3 and back to 1, or however many patrol points you have, or you could have it bounce back as in going 1, 2, 3 and then 3, 2, 1, which is like a typical patrol back and forth. And that's about as far as I got in about 2.5 weeks worth of work. It was a lot bigger and more difficult than I thought it would be. I'm going to enjoy this Super Metroidvania month, which goes until the middle of February. I'm hoping to at least have a vertical slice of the game finished by then. I'll, of course, upload it to itch.io. Thanks for viewing. Take it easy.